title. I gave my parents a luxurious 1-week trip to Europe with me, but when I picked them up for the airport, they told me they were going with my jobless sister instead. My mother smiled. Your sister needed some rest, so we decided to take her. I didn't say anything. However, when they landed in Europe, a gift meant to heal. Growing up, I was always the one who fixed things. When Dad lost his job, I cut up my college meal card to save money and sent part of my scholarship refund back home. When Mom got sick and needed help getting to appointments, I rearranged my internship hours to be there. And when my little sister, Lana, dropped out of school to find herself, I was the one who paid her rent for 6 months. But none of that mattered, really. Not when Lana cried. Not when Lana wanted something. Because in our house, Lana's tears were gospel. Her struggles were always just a little more urgent. Her needs always weighed just a little more than mine. Still, I kept showing up. That's who I am. So when I landed a huge promotion, creative director at one of the top agencies in the city, I decided to celebrate by giving back. A 1-week, all expenses paid luxury trip to Europe. Paris, Rome, Venice. The dream. Just the 3 of us, I told Mom over the phone. You, Dad, and me. First class. 5-star hotels. My treat. She sounded thrilled. Dad even got choked up. I spent weeks curating the itinerary. Restaurant reservations. Chauffeurs. Guided tours in every city. Personalized welcome baskets delivered to each suite, with their initials embroidered on silk sleep masks. I wanted it to be unforgettable, and it was, just not in the way I imagined. The airport betrayal. The day of the flight, I pulled up to my parents' house with the town car, loaded their suitcases, and smiled as they came outside. But then the front door opened again. Out walked Lana, sunglasses on, luggage in tow, dressed like a boho Instagram influencer who'd never worked a day in her life. I blinked. Mom walked over to me with a gentle smile and said the words that would hollow out my chest. Sweetheart, your sister needed some rest. So we decided to take her instead. I looked from her to Dad, who wouldn't meet my eyes, and then back to Lana, who was scrolling through her phone like she wasn't even present. You decided? I said, barely able to keep my voice steady. Well, she's been so stressed lately, Mom explained, as if the jobless, rent-free lifestyle was a source of deep trauma. We figured she needed it more than we did. I said nothing. Not a word. I simply helped load the last suitcase into the trunk and waved goodbye as the car pulled away. And as I watched them disappear down the street, I whispered to myself, let's see how well that trip goes. Without me. Because what they didn't know, I hadn't just booked the trip. I controlled everything about it. Welcome to Europe. Kind of. They landed in Paris on a cool spring morning. The sky was perfect, the air crisp with promise. Mom had dreamed of seeing the Eiffel Tower her entire life. She imagined this trip would be the fairy tale she always felt she deserved. She didn't notice anything strange at first. Their driver was late. Not Paris late, but American forgotten to book late. They stood at the arrivals gate for almost 40 minutes, surrounded by a crowd of tourists and aggressive cab drivers. Finally, a flustered man in a wrinkled suit appeared, holding a sign with my parents' last name misspelled. Smith, instead of Smith. He didn't offer to help with the bags, didn't speak English. And the car, not the black Mercedes I had reserved for my version of the trip. It was a sputtering sedan that barely looked legal. Lana was the first to complain. Is this a joke? This can't be the ride. But it wasn't a joke. It was an adjustment. The hotel that didn't exist. At the hotel, things got weirder. Their reservation was canceled, at least according to the front desk. They had no record of a booking under any of their names. Mom pulled up the confirmation I had emailed her, but it didn't match the hotel's system. The concierge politely suggested they try down the street at a more budget-friendly option, which is where they ended up. Not the regal suite with a view of the Eiffel Tower, a tiny walk-up hostel with twin beds and no air conditioning. Lana nearly screamed. Dad had to carry the luggage himself, up 3 flights of stairs. Mom asked the receptionist if this was part of the package. He looked confused. What package? Meanwhile, back home, I was sitting on my balcony, coffee in hand, getting live text updates from an assistant I hired specifically for this moment. A woman named Isabel, a former hotel manager who helped me reroute, adjust, and carefully detour every leg of the trip. Once I knew I hadn't even launched yet. But I said yes. Ryan cracks. That weekend, I received a frantic voicemail from my cousin Kelsey, who still worked the front desk at Harbor Crest. Claire, Ryan's freaking out. He found out about the interview. He told the staff that if anyone talks to you, they're out. And Mom said you're embarrassing the family. Are you okay? I smiled as I pressed delete. Because when the people who took everything from you say you're the problem, it means they finally realize you're the threat. The legacy I'm rewriting. The article dropped on a Tuesday. Full-page feature. My face. My name. A quote that made Mom text me nothing but a period. Legacy isn't about blood. It's about integrity, vision, and the courage to walk away from people who only ever saw you as a backup plan. The next day, I got an email from a former guest of Harbor Crest. She now ran a wellness brand in California. Wanted to partner on events at my future property. Her words, I came to Harbor Crest because of you. You made it feel like home. Wherever you go next, I'll follow. The beginning of the end, for him. Ryan held a staff meeting later that week. Half the team didn't show up. The other half showed up late. And 3 more employees turned in resignation letters, with no destination listed. But I knew where they were headed, because I wasn't just building a hotel. I was rebuilding what Harbor Crest used to be, before they forgot who carried it. The soft opening that shook everything. 3 months after I walked out of that staff meeting, Claire Coast opened its doors, not with a bang, but with quiet, purposeful elegance. No red ribbon, no press conference. Just a weekend soft launch with select partners, loyal former staff, and a few longtime guests who'd been quietly waiting for my next move. The vibe. The space was intimate, thoughtful. Every detail, down to the scent diffusers and towel folds, was designed to feel like a conversation between me and the guest. We didn't offer discounts. We didn't compete. We redefined hospitality. And it worked. By the second weekend, we were booked out for the month. Delaney walked into the break room that morning with a grin, holding up a printed spreadsheet. Fully booked for October. Ryan's going to have an aneurysm. James laughed. Pretty sure he already did. A couple of his old regulars just rebooked. Here. I didn't laugh. I just nodded, calm and still, because revenge didn't need to be loud. It just needed to be undeniable. An unexpected offer. That week, I received a call from Maxwell Holt, a major investor who had a long history with Harbor Crest. He had once helped my parents refinance during a rough season and was considered family, until Ryan tried to lowball him during a strategic restructuring. "Claire," he said, his voice deep and direct, "you've got something special here." "Thank you," I said cautiously. "I'm interested in helping you grow. New location, franchise rights, a full chain of boutique properties, your name at the helm." I blinked. "That's fast." He chuckled. That's recognition. You gave your family everything. They handed the business to someone who didn't earn it. But you're the one building something real." The family visit. The offer was still fresh in my mind when I saw them. My parents. They walked into the Clare Coast lobby one Tuesday morning. No call, no warning. I was in the middle of a partner meeting, but I stepped away. Mom looked nervous. Dad looked tired. "Claire," Mom began, her voice too light, too rehearsed. "We wanted to see it for ourselves." "You've built something impressive," Dad said, his voice gravelly. I waited. Finally, Mom said, "Ryan isn't doing well. He's overwhelmed. The staff turnover's been difficult." I raised an eyebrow. "And we wanted to ask if you'd consider consulting for Harbor Crest. Help us bring it back." I stared at them, heart steady. They didn't come to apologize. They came to borrow my power. Again. I looked Mom in the eyes. "You gave Ryan the crown. You told me he was more of a leader. You made your choice." She flinched. Dad spoke up. "We were wrong." I stood there in silence. Then I said, "So am I. Wrong. To ever sell my condo to save people who couldn't see me." And then I turned away. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked back to my meeting and left them standing there in my lobby, outsiders in a world I built alone. Because some lessons are better learned without the comfort of forgiveness. When the crown falls. By late November, Harbor Crest was unraveling at the seams. I hadn't said a word publicly. No interviews, no attacks, no online shade. I let the work speak. But Ryan, he couldn't handle the silence. He started posting videos, rambling ones, about modern trends ruining the industry, subtly taking jabs at Clare Coast. He blamed the staff exodus on entitlement, complained that the town was turning against tradition. And then, he made the mistake that turned murmurs into headlines. He tried to shut down the community breakfast program, a weekly tradition that had existed at Harbor Crest since my grandparents ran it in the 70s. He claimed it was a waste of resources. It made the local paper's front page, the public collapse. The article was brutal. From heart to hollow, how Harbor Crest lost its soul under new leadership. Photos included smiling seniors from the Breakfast Club, former staff now thriving at Clare Coast, and a pulled quote from an anonymous source. "He runs it like a frat house with a spreadsheet." By the next morning, Ryan's face was all over social media, and not in a good way. Cancellations flooded in. Local vendors pulled their contracts. Even longtime staff who had stuck it out finally walked. The family's breaking point mom called me in tears. He locked himself in the office. He won't talk to us. He says he never wanted this. I didn't know what to say. Not because I didn't care, but because I was done trying to fix what they broke. I'm sorry, Mom, I said quietly. I really am. But maybe now you understand what it feels like to be invisible. She sobbed harder. I didn't stay on the line long. The unexpected email that night. I received an email from Ryan. Subject line: I get it now. You were the glue. I thought I could lead, but I never realized how much of the weight you carried. I was jealous, and I let that jealousy convince me I deserved something I hadn't earned. I know it's too late to fix it, but if you ever want to talk, I'd like to listen. I didn't respond, not because I hated him, but because he needed the silence more than he needed forgiveness. Claire's choice. Maxwell Holt called again. We're greenlit on funding. You can have 3 more locations within the next 2 years. Your brand's reputation is exploding. I looked around at my team, at the warmth of the lobby, the hum of good work being done by people who respected each other. Then I smiled. Let's expand. My name on the door. 1 year later, I stood in front of the newest Clare Coast property, an elegant coastal retreat with glass balconies, vertical gardens, and a polished brass plaque that gleamed in the sunlight. The plaque didn't read in honor of the Harbor Crest legacy. It read, Claire Morgan, founder, visionary, builder, my name, no asterisk, no apology, closure at the shore. I hadn't seen my parents in 6 months, not since Ryan resigned and quietly left town to travel and reflect. But one chilly December morning, I took a walk past Harbor Crest. The building looked worn, older than it should have. Some windows were shuttered, the parking lot half empty. But what stopped me wasn't the structure. It was the bench, the one my grandfather built by hand, the one he and I used to sit on while he told me stories about customer service and honor and the responsibility of leadership. It was still there, cracked but solid, forgotten but strong, like I had once been. I sat down, pulled a folded letter from my coat pocket. The letter they never read aloud. I had written it months ago, addressed to both my parents. I didn't leave the family business. You left me when you chose to believe titles mattered more than actions, when you gave away something I had poured my soul into and asked me to keep smiling. But I'm not angry anymore, because sometimes being forced out is how you learn to build your own door. I still remember everything Granddad taught us, and I'm proving that legacy can be honored, even when it's rebuilt with new hands. You chose your son, but I chose myself, and I've never been more proud of that choice. The last word, I placed the letter under the bench, tucked between the wood slats where only someone looking closely might ever find it. Then I stood, turned toward the sea, and walked back to the life I built, not for validation, not for revenge, but because I finally understood that my value was never tied to their approval. Epilogue. The legacy reclaimed. 6 months later, a new plaque appeared at Harbor Crest's lobby, in memory of Richard Morgan, whose vision inspired a generation of hospitality. I received a photo of it in an email. Underneath the main engraving, someone had added a brass plate, restored and updated by Claire Morgan in tribute. No press release, no fanfare, just a quiet truth cast in metal. That the legacy was always mine to carry. You are not alone, and you are so much stronger than you think. Tap that subscribe button to join Veiled Revenge, where we share tales that heal, inspire, and remind you that even the deepest heartbreak can lead to the most beautiful new beginning. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that revenge isn't always about getting even. Sometimes, it's just about getting better.